Hello, this is a supplement to the Introduction to Event History Analysis. We have seen elsewhere what event history analysis is. It is also important to know what event history analysis is not. As often in science, there are terms used in different ways by neighboring disciplines and different terms to name the same thing. You may have encountered before the term panel data analysis. This is a class of a statistical model used mainly by economists. Strictly speaking, a panel means a cross-sectional survey is part of a series of cross-sectional surveys conducted on the same population. The problem is that economists often use panel data or longitudinal data indifferently. The status of the population is recorded at each survey. The analyst is interested in the change of status from one panel to the next. However, the dates of these changes are not usually recorded. In other words, events are not recorded, only difference in status between two fixed survey dates. On the contrary, in event history analysis, all dates of changes are recorded. Another type of analysis, also used by economists, is time series analysis. These may be confused with event history analysis because of the term time. However, time series analysis is reserved for aggregated data, not for individual data as in event history analysis. Time series analysis does not deal with events, but with relationships between quantitative changes over time. Good examples are GDP per capita, percentage of votes, etc. Now, what is even more confusing is longitudinal data analysis, which is a fairly new type of analysis that is used by epidemiologists and others. It consists in mixing the panel approach with a time series approach. In this type of analysis, the outcome, or dependent variable, is measured at the individual level and is continuous. Examples are blood pressure, CD4 count, temperature, etc. This type of analysis belongs to the class of growth model, but is applied in a panel setting. So, if it is not panel data, time series, or continuous outcome that are needed, then what data are needed to conduct event history analysis? Well, any data that contains dates. The most common source of event history data are retrospective survey. This is, for example, the well-known demographic and health surveys, the DHS, one of the most used data sources to study child mortality and fertility. Other sources in Africa include the urban integration surveys. Remember our example comparing results of a logit model with those of a Cox model was taken from the urban integration survey conducted in Antananarivo in 1998. The principle of retrospective data collection was also adopted in migration surveys such as the Remuau surveys, also named Nesmua, the Mafe surveys, etc. There is another main type of data collection that is named prospective data by opposition to retrospective data. Prospective data collection consists in following up a population at regular intervals for as many months or years as necessary. It is also named follow-up or cohort data. Prospective data involves rounds of data collection at regular intervals. The dates are recorded for events that occurred between each round of data collection. So actually, in this type of data, there is necessarily a retrospective component pertaining to a limited time interval between two rounds. In this course, we will actually use HDSS data, that is, data coming from health and demographics surveillance systems. Other examples include cohort studies, such as the Birth to 20. This cohort consisted of people born in Soweto in 1994. This cohort was followed up until the age of 20 and actually for some more years. Of course, there are many more cohort studies, including a number of clinical studies that were conducted on a subset of individuals. Typically, they involve following up patients under a new treatment in order to compare them with patients under another treatment or under no specific treatment. Lastly, we have panel data. Remember, we said that panel data are not longitudinal data because they do not usually record dates of change. However, some panels do record dates of changes. For that, the data collection has to include some sort of retrospective component, as in follow-up or cohort data collection. You could argue that once dates are recorded in panels, then they become follow-up or cohort data. The difference would be in the number of rounds. In so-called panels, the number of rounds is limited and usually several years apart. In a follow-up, such as in HDSS, the rounds are frequent and not more than 1 year apart. Now, this is our non-commercial break. Many HDSS databases can be found on in-depth iShare website. They are open data, meaning that anybody can actually use these datasets provided that they cite the source of the data properly as indicated on iShare website.